Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation. This is where right and left come to try to be reasonable, and I'm very excited that the president has decided, again, I believe President Trump just made the best decision, the most important decision of this administration. Let's get out, let's go around the country and talk affordability, okay? Now, I am going to help you prepare for what the state of play is, okay? What is this going to be? Well, this is going to be a battle about inflation, specifically as seen with gas, groceries, mortgages, and health care. Nothing matters more to the majority or to the midterms. Now, what's the problem with economics? You know, a president once said, give me a one-handed economist, because they're always saying on the other hand. You can cherry pick data all day long. There's no question about it. It can get very frustrating for you and for us. The ultimate metric in politics, though, is how people feel about it, okay? 7 in 10 say they're spending more on groceries. 6 in 10 say the same about utilities. Among Trump voters, nearly 4 in 10 say the cost of living, his signature issue, is worse than they ever remember it being. And nearly 1 in 5 say the president holds full responsibility for the economy. Now, look, you can look at 18% and say, well, that's not much. Look at where that number is on any other question of culpability for this president. It is very unusual for the base to blame him for anything. And especially on this issue matters most. So what are we heading into it with as a narrative? Well, we know that about this administration from Trump's Treasury Secretary, who says those poll numbers, don't believe your lying eyes.
Economy has been better than we thought. We've had the 4% GDP growth in a couple of quarters. We're going to finish the year, despite the Schumer shutdown, with 3% real GDP growth. The Biden administration created the worst inflation in 50 years, and maybe for working Americans, the worst inflation of all time. And we have pulled that number down. Democrats created scarcity. We are now seeing this affordability problem, and I think next year we're going to move on to prosperity.
Now, look, here's my problem with that. If the economy is great and better than you expected, then why would prosperity not come until next year? Shouldn't it be here already if the economy's great? So this is why the president is hitting the road. No disrespect to the Treasury Secretary or any of the other cabinet members. None of them can message for Trump the way he can. I do believe it is fair criticism that the people around him are not doing him any favors. I really don't believe it. So he's taking it into his own hands. He is his own best messenger. And for the rest of us, at least this is nominally at the start about what we should all care about. Okay, here's the question. What is the truth about whether or not you are better off than you were under Biden? The White House keeps touting that nationwide gas prices on average are down to $2.90 a gallon. Lowest in 4 years after peaking at $5 a gallon under Biden. Now, again, all of these numbers are about where you live, what period are we measuring, and why is the data what it is. Okay, so it's all subject to those conditions. But if you take the pandemic out of the analysis, all right, and that's what Trump insists is fair when assessing his first term. Right? Every time you say, well, you know, your economy wasn't so great. Oh, I'll take the pandemic out, and we were. So if you do the same thing for Biden, gas prices are less than a dime cheaper than they were this time last year under the Biden administration. Why? Why is it down at all? Demand is down. And that is not necessarily a good thing to see in an economy. And the president's OPEC pals have increased supply recently. Now, again, it depends on where you live. In states like Pennsylvania, where the president is starting tomorrow, one of the reasons he's in a good place there is because whatever they're not happy about, he's going to blame on two things: Biden and the Democrats running the state. Okay? So Pennsylvania, Illinois, New York, California, they're all above $3 a gallon. The administration is going to say, yeah, blame the Democrats. Is that fair? There is definitely correlation. Is there causation? Depends on the state, but the answer I would say generally is yes, because some blue states do include more taxes on gas prices than red states do. A lot of environmental stuff, clean gas, stuff like that. On groceries, again, where, when, why, all matter, okay? Looking at the data from September, overall grocery prices rose almost 3%, 2.7% year over year. Last year, they rose at about half of that. Why? Well, eggs were a big part of the story. There was a terrible bird flu that, of course, nobody wanted to give credit to during the Biden administration. They just wanted to say egg prices are up. But there was a reason that he didn't control that they were up. And eggs are down from there, but they're still higher than they were. Beef is up nearly 15%. Okay? And there is no bird flu there. That's just about supply and demand and the cost of moving things around. The White House says the key indicator to look at with all of these things is inflation. That's what you heard Secretary Bessent referring to a lot. You know, now it's around 3, it's been under 3, it ticks back up, but it's so much better than where it was under Biden, where he averaged 5 or so, and during the pandemic, forget it, it was like twice that. This is true-ish. Why? Because they are including a period of the pandemic in their analysis. So what if you just look year over year, right? Most immediately before this administration and this one. Well, there's your answer. Okay? Now, here's what I think you should focus on just to be fair, all right? If you look at the course of history, where are prices for anything today compared to where they were in 1980? House prices, anything. Oh, they're all higher. Why? Because prices rarely go down in an extended measure of any economy that is growing. The measure that matters is whether or not what they pay us, wages, go up as much or more as the cost of living. That's what really matters. And you have to remember, I am not a fan of MAGA as an idea because I think saying make it great again is reductive. It inherently implies America is not a great country, and I disagree with that. However, there was a time, decades long in this country after World War II, when the economy worked much better for more people than it does today. Why? It wasn't simply that there were different laws at play, but there were different understandings about how top-heavy it was okay to be. And there was a shift at some point, not to get too into the weeds, hold that, from Keynesian economics, Keynes is K-E-Y, okay, E-N, Keynesian economics to Milton Friedman. What was the difference? Keynesian was, how much can we do for the most people? How much? Labor has to participate in the success of the corporate profits that they help drive. And then it went to Friedman economics, which was, well, the only duty of the corporation is to reward the shareholders. That's their only thing. That's the only reason they exist. And it hadn't always been that way, and that's how it got so top-heavy, okay? And we've seen that with wages. Everything keeps going up and up, but wages almost never do. Why? Because we've shifted the paradigm of what is okay. And I'm really interested to hear what the president says about that, because I'll tell you something. This guy was never a fan of corporate America and how they treat themselves. I know this. I used to bring him on TV all the time during the 2008, 2009 financial crisis, and he would chide me. Stop looking at Wall Street. That's just about the rich people. Look at Main Street and look how they're paying their people. They don't pay their people. He used to make that case. So, wages. Under Biden, wages were underwater. Okay, they were down somewhere around 0.75%, accounting for inflation, which is the whole point, right? The buying power went down. This year, wages are up almost a full percent when accounting for price increases. So that is a good indicator. It's not enough because there's too much strain on prices. This is the most important measure. Now, here's the trick for the president. On wages, the thing that is putting the thumb on the scale to hold them from what they could be is the president's signature policy. It's the tariffs, okay? Now, to counter that, the administration is saying, well, you know, those tariffs are going to wind up putting a check for about $2,000 in your pocket. Okay. One, he can't do that by himself, okay? Congress has to sign off, all right? And the Democrats hate the idea, and a lot of conservatives hate the idea. Why? Because conservatives are against tariffs in most instances. And what they swallowed with this was, well, at least he's finally going to pay down the debt and the deficit with that money. You heard Bill O'Reilly make this case on this show last week. Oh, you got to be careful about the tariffs. That's how he's going to pay down the debt. Well, if you're going to pay down the debt, how are you going to cut those checks? You see what I'm saying? But even if you put those two major obstacles aside, even if you got that check for $2,000, how much are the tariffs costing each American family? By most estimates, it's more than that. So even if you got past Congress and you did what you said you weren't going to do, which is use the money for the debt and the deficit, it still keeps people underwater. All right? Then there is the real Megillah, okay? The real Megillah that people want to look at, the beast behind cost of living, is insurance, car, home, and health. It's going up for all of us everywhere. Home insurance prices are going up somewhere around 10%. Okay, I got my letter. I'm sure you did too. State Farm. Auto insurance, up. Home insurance, up. Health insurance, up. And I got to tell you, that 6% number, I looked into it. It's going to be more than that. And I'll tell you why. Because there's so many layers of where they get you, and they separate insurance versus cost of care. And they kind of get you two ways. So this is a big deal. Now, this week, they're supposed to have the vote on the ACA subsidies. The ACA subsidies are the easiest part of the problem to fix. If you put the subsidies back in, you're going to help 20-something million people afford something. But remember, why do we need the subsidies? The subsidies are your money and my money being put to help people who can't afford the costs. It's still about the costs. And the problem with the subsidies and the Republican plan is, forget about the ACA. We're going to give you the money in health savings accounts. Okay, the idea of having power over it sounds good. You're right. But what would any of this do for prices? So if insurance companies, hospitals, doctors, whatever it is, they know that you're being given money by the government that's in an account, that's going to make them lower prices? No. Somebody's got to have the balls to take on this power structure. Okay? The insurance lobby, the healthcare lobby gives the most money to the most politicians. They employ the most people among the top lobbying special interest groups in almost every district that counts all across this country. Those are the facts. I am very happy that the president is taking this trip and talking about what matters. I will be very careful to point out to you who is trying to distract from what he's talking about here. Who is not having this fight right now when we need to have it? Who's going to try to get you to look at something else? All right? This is a very important time. I hope you pay attention. So, what is the state of play? What are the expectations? I bring in two better minds for you. The host of NewsNation's Batya Ungar-Sargon, the boss, and one half of the KrassenCast, the Kraken, Brian Krassenstein. I have you both here. I'm going to put my IFB back in. Let me start with you, Batya. What do you think, boss, about him taking this trip, and what are you looking for? Here, Nick, fix this.
First of all,
go ahead.
Chris, that monologue was so incredible. I'm going to go back and watch it like 2 more times. It was so rich with information that our audience just is desperately hungry to understand what is happening. And I think especially what you ended on. These health insurance companies are cartels. They are so evil in that they have designed AI bots whose entire agenda is to steal money from the American people, money they have already paid when people are at their most vulnerable, and deny their claims for healthcare. It's horrible. I really think if the president could come up with some way of reining that in, whether it's saying, you know what, you take money from Medicare, Medicaid, which they all do, you cannot raise premiums more than a certain percent. Like, why can't the government do that? They have the right to do that. They do that in a lot of other marketplaces. If he can find a way to do that, to couple with bringing down the cost of drugs, which he already did, this will just cement his legacy. And I think that you're so right. There's so much he can address, but this healthcare piece, big picture, that would just be stupendous if he could find a way to address that.
What do you see in this opportunity, my handsome friend? This is the issue that Democrats have seized upon early on. I think they've been inconsistent with it. I don't understand why they get distracted from this issue by really anything else. Not that war crimes don't matter, if that's what you think this is with the boats. All those things matter, but this is what will matter to the most people in the midterms. What are you looking for here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking to see how he's going to explain away some of these things. Most of these issues about affordability, the ones that we do have, are because of his own policies, whether it's tariffs, whether it's deportations. You know, like the tariffs are a middle class tax increase, right? It's disguised as foreign policy, but that's what it is. So I want to see how he's going to explain that away. He's taken away restrictions against price gouging in many different cases. Let's hear it, right? And I hope that he's truthful, which I don't think he's going to be. I think he's going to lie and he's going to distort facts and he's going to tell us that, prices are down, which he's been saying for the last 11 months. But let's see what he has to say.
So, Brian, a little bounce question. I think you guys have learned the lesson that Trump sucks is not enough, okay? It's kind of what got the Democrats here, where they are. What do you need to hear from Democrats about what you would do that would make it better? What ideas are you hoping your people say during this time versus just listening to Trump?
Well, I think it's important to realize that, the income inequality in this country is just widening so rapidly, and AI and robotics, automation, it's only going to contribute to that. So we need to know what the plan is, like not just this year, but 4, 5, 6 years from now, when it's only going to be amplified. So what are you planning to do? What policies can be put in place, whether it's taxes on automation, whether it's, figuring out a way to have some sort of basic income? We need to hear that before it's actually time to do it. So I hope that we can shift the conversation to that. I don't think it will happen, though.
Well, let's, look, we need it to happen, right? Hey, Buzz, as I said, and this is just my experience, okay? The president, when he was Citizen Trump, used to smack the corporate class around during the financial crisis. He did not think they should be bailed out. He thought it was a huge mistake. He thought the money should have gone to the homeowners, and that let them fail. They'll figure it out and they'll all come back. That's how it is. Do you think he needs to tap back into that attitude, especially as someone who doesn't have to run again, to go after the scariest monster in our political economy, which is the healthcare lobby?
Well, I have to say, I a little bit disagree with you, Chris, and you, Brian, on the tariffs thing. I think that's exactly what that was. I mean, Liberation Day, if you think Wall Street was sitting there thinking, oh, wow, our guy is delivering for us, it was the exact opposite. That was the Trump you're describing, saying to Wall Street, I don't work for you. I work for the American people. So I'm going to put these tariffs on and you're all going to cry and cry and cry, but we're decoupling from China. I'm going to bring back $20 trillion in reshoring investment, and those are going to turn into jobs for working class Americans. Now, of course, those jobs aren't here yet. It takes time in order to build those factories. I believe that what he's doing is a very long-term reorientation of the economy to where it was this upward funnel into the pockets of the elites for so long, whether it was through free trade or mass migration. He's turned that funnel around, but it takes time for that to deliver. And so until you know somebody in your community who's gotten a job in one of those factories, it's going to take a while for that to sink in. And so these are long-term projects. And I think things like the soybean bailout are ways to help working class people get over that hump into this golden age.
Batya's last point there, Brian, I want your take on that. And not just the cleverness of, oh, he's helping the farmers. I thought he didn't like socialism. What's more socialistic than using tax dollars to bail out an industry because of what your policies did? That's always happened with the agrarian sector in this country for one reason or for another. So the gotcha aside, Brian, what do you see in the farm subsidy bill that should matter for Democrats?
Yeah, I mean, I see a failed policy of Trump backfiring when, Democrats warn them that that's what's going to happen. You're going to have less exports to foreign countries of your agriculture. And Democrats should definitely take advantage of that, because I don't think Republicans are a fan of these bailouts. I don't think they are at all. A lot of them are going to go along with it because it's what Trump says is right. But Republicans typically aren't for these kinds of things. So I think Democrats need to take advantage of that, explain how Trump's tariffs have put a burden on farmers, how his deportations have put a burden on farmers, and that he's just trying to fix something that he created.
This is the most important debate to have, and I really hope we can keep it straight while he's on this tour and not get distracted by, whatever people want to click on more. But I really appreciate you both setting the table for us, and we'll be doing it every day here. Batya, continued success for you here at NewsNation. Thank you for coming on to help me. Brian, I've told you 100 times, I let you come on even though you're smarter than I am. You can't come on with better facial hair. You can't do
I was
both,
going to shave,
okay?
But I knew how much you liked it, so I didn't.
Yeah, I know. I'm jealous. I don't like it. I'm jealous. I'm small. I'm petty. Thank you very much, Brian. Be well. I'll talk to you both again soon. 4 minutes and 35 seconds. The latest stabbing attack in Charlotte by an illegal immigrant, okay? He had been deported multiple times. This was the boogeyman. This is the boogeyman. This is why people got so pissed off at the Biden administration for being lax on immigration. Okay, I accept that. It is right to feel that way. What I have not liked is, how are you doing with all of these ugly scenes that we're seeing all over America? Show me the data. The data is now out, and it does not tell the story that we're hearing from this administration. Let's go through the data, and let's debate what it means next. Okay, latest case, Charlotte, North Carolina. An illegal immigrant, been deported multiple times, had a criminal record, confessed to stabbing a man on the same train where 4 months ago a Ukrainian woman was violently stabbed to death by a homeless man. It's a horrible, horrible coincidence. It's terrible. And of course, one example like this is too many, of course. But they are exceptions to the rule about people who are here illegally. Okay? The crime statistics just do not justify the idea that illegal or undocumented immigrants in this country, migrants in this country, are the crime problem or are even a significant criminal threat. All right? But look, politically, I get how powerful just one example of this is. Okay? Now, here's my counter. If you're going to have masked men running around the country, disrupting communities, all right, making people angry, causing protests, pulling people out of jobs, pulling people out of schools, pulling people out of homes, making mistakes and grabbing citizens, all right, and holding them and getting rid of them, often with not the kind of due process we would have expected, you better be really effective. And that's why the data matters so much. And that's why I keep asking for it every time Tom Homan says, look, I look at the data every day. I see it. Okay, now data has finally come out. The immigration teams, are they going after bad hombres or the wrong hombres? Here is their data. Nearly 1/3 of the people they have arrested have no criminal record. Again, nearly 1/3 have no criminal record. And no, the counter is not, well, yeah, they do. They're here illegally. They had an order of removal. That doesn't count. It's that you were going after people who didn't just come here illegally out of desperation for a better life, but you're going to grab the ones that are doing bad things while they're here. That was the sell. Okay? This is why I ask for the data all the time. Is less than 1/3 enough of a justification for how they're doing this? Let's debate. Former acting deputy DHS secretary in the first Trump administration, Ken Cuccinelli, and a former DHS chief of staff, also from Trump's first administration, Miles Taylor. Ken, it's good to see you. Miles, it's good to see you. Again, I get it. You're not here legally. That means that you can be removed by law enforcement. I get it. But the way ICE is doing it is so aggressive, so disruptive. Don't you think this data should be more compelling than it is?
So, Chris, I think you're starting with an awful lot of wrong premises there. I'm amazed that only a third don't have an additional criminal record. I mean, let's say, and we don't need to debate the raw number, but let's say there's 20 million illegals here total over our lifetimes. Maybe 500,000 roughly have committed additional significant crimes, talking like DUI and up, and all the way up to murder, of course. And that's about 2.5% of that number, of the 20 million. Of course, more people who haven't committed additional crimes in addition to entering the country illegally are going to be the majority of people removed. And the president didn't say
No, it's not what you, but that's not what he promised. Yes, he did. He said we're going after bad hombres,
Let me
Ken.
finish with the most
Go ahead, make your point,
important
make your point.
The most important
Make your point,
the
make your
president
point.
said during his campaign was these bad hombres were going to be the priority. And they have been the priority, and the data shows that.
All right. Miles, I don't agree with Ken. I believe this shows that you're grabbing a lot of people for things that don't justify how they're grabbing them. What do you think?
Yeah, and look, I even think the president agrees with you, Chris. I mean, that's why we saw a couple of months ago Donald Trump backtrack on hospitality workers and farm workers because he was hearing from his friends. And this is not what he envisioned either. I really don't. I mean, Ken knows this as well as me. There's a war inside this administration of different perspectives on this. And some of those were the same people who were there when Ken and I were there. Some have the view that every single human being who came into this country, regardless of how they came in, if they didn't get legal status right at the front door, we got to round every single one of them up and throw them out. Some very powerful voices in the White House who, regardless of what Donald Trump said on the campaign trail, that's what they want to do. There are others in this administration who thinks we really should prioritize criminal aliens. When Ken and I were at DHS, we very specifically defined criminal aliens, not as people who came in as illegally, but people who were also convicted of crimes. It's all over the place. I'm sure Ken testified to it. I testified to it. That is the definition that we were using. And this administration sold the public on that being the focus this term. Chris, when you look at the data, you can't think anything other than, well, that was a lie, because 1/3 of those people are not meeting that definition. That's just a lie. It's a total bait and switch.
All right, go ahead.
You know, would
Go ahead, Ken.
three-quarters
You
of
hear
them
the criticism.
having committed additional crimes? You guys have set an artificial bar. This is not an honest debate. 2/3 of those removed, according to your reporting, have additional criminal records. That's about 150,000 people. That's 1/3, almost a third of all of the illegals who have committed additional crimes. You started this report segment, Chris, with the report about the Honduran, in Charlotte. And you commented about the crime rates. Those blue areas aren't reporting who's here illegally. Those numbers are artificially low, and every crime committed by someone here illegally is one that should never happen. It isn't about crime rates, it's about crime victims.
I know, but Ken, that is not a fair premise, okay? I agree with you.
Very fair
utopian, utopian, but we have always had people entering the country illegally. And it's not just an absence or an omission of data that is the suggestion. Every measure that's been done over the last quarter century of the impact of undocumented people in this country is that criminally, they are transgressing at a lower percentage than citizens, and that they do a lot of good things for their communities despite how they entered the wrong way. This is not new until you guys decided to change the narrative. And I get that the cases in Carolina look terrible. I get that one is too many. But Ken,
There's a lot
this
more
is not
harm
getting
than
bad
just criminal
hombres.
harm, Chris. There's a lot more harm than
but what
just
are they
criminal
doing?
harm.
What are they doing? They're fueling our agro economy.
The commerce wing of the GOP that's always wanted to flood the Bushites who've wanted to flood America with illegals because it keeps their wages down. It depresses Americans' wages by flooding the low end of the labor market.
Keeps prices down. Keeps prices
okay.
down,
Is
Ken.
that okay with you? Is that okay with you? The only kind of good inflation is the kind that pays a fellow citizen who's working hard to support their family and obeying the law. And you just said it's better to undercut those people, and I disagree. And so
Ken,
does the
look,
president, I think.
Ken, hold on. I'm going to go back to you in a second, Miles, but hold on, Ken. Give me a break, okay? That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is you guys are dealing with a pricing
leaving
problem.
Parts of this argument out.
No, I'm not doing it anything out of convenience because I got to tell you, I see this as agonizing. I don't like that law enforcement now has a black eye because of how ICE is being perceived around the country. And I get why they want to mask up. I also think being masked up is a horrible look for communities to see law enforcement looking like a Gestapo. I hate what's happening here. And it's not because I want illegal immigration. It's not because I don't believe in borders. What I'm saying is to put all these people in the same basket as if they were a bunch of rats on a ship has never been fair, Ken. And now this data suggests that you're just grabbing people as you can and not going after people that are actually threats to communities.
It says
That's
the
my
exact
point.
opposite. I just disagree.
All right, fine. We disagree. We disagree. Miles, last point to you.
Well, look, I would just say this. The solution I think we've all known in Washington for decades on how to solve this is some kind of grand bargain on comprehensive immigration reform. My frustration has always been that there was that opportunity. If anyone was ever going to be able to do it, Donald Trump had a Nixon goes to China moment in the first term to go make that happen. But he couldn't focus on it. He was so obsessed with things like the design of the border wall. I don't know if Ken's meetings with him were like this, but focused on telling us how sharp the spikes needed to be and how much of it he wanted to repaint and what color the paint was going to be, that he would not focus on going to do a comprehensive immigration reform deal. And now we are seeing the consequences of that. Is the only option he feels like he's got is just to go send everyone out of the country. That's a mistake. I think it was a historic missed opportunity.
Paul Ryan and the Chamber of Commerce wing of the GOP undercut that opportunity that Miles, I think, is accurately describing, not Donald Trump. The Bob Goodlatte bill was a successful bill. It got 193 Republicans, but not the Speaker of the House because he was actively undermining the president's agenda.
Ken, I appreciate you making the case, as always. Miles, as well. Hey, look. We all can disagree here. That's the beautiful thing, but it'll never be done with personal animus. We'll fight on ideas like we should. Ken, be well. Miles, you too. And look, I'm always transparent with you guys. I'm second generation in this country. OK, so for me to just look at people who come in, my grandparents came in here. They did not check any of the boxes that the president wants them to. All right. They didn't have education. They didn't have money. They didn't even have real skills. OK, they didn't speak the language. They barely spoke it after 50 years here. And one generation later, their son wound up being governor of the greatest state in this country and seen as one of the most articulate, eloquent orators and politicians in modern history. One generation. That's what happens when you give someone a chance. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Tomorrow marks 1 year since the arrest of the man who assassinated United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The fascination and support for this punk-ass murderer has only grown. Now his lawyers are in court. Now it's the real fight, okay, about what evidence is going to be used. The defense is making a case against the cops. New York's top cop who worked this case makes the case. Next. Luigi Mangione is a privileged Ivy League kid who comes from a wealthy family who never had a health care meltdown hellscape that so many Americans do. And yet he decided he had to, quote, do something. So he killed a healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, the head of United Healthcare. And look, United Healthcare has a lot to answer for. But killing this guy did nothing to make anything better. Now his defense team is doing what it has to do, which is attack the case. They're trying to get evidence that was taken from his backpack when he was arrested at a Pennsylvania McDonald's, thrown out of the trial, alleging it was taken by police without a warrant. There's some important evidence in there. The 9mm handgun, the silencer, a magazine with bullets wrapped in underwear, his notebook. Because look, it's not like he's going to take the stand because he doesn't have the balls to do that. Mr. I'm making a statement. I'm going to pump my fist. And take the stand and say what you did if you're so brave. So is the defense going to prevail, and how much does it matter? Two better minds, okay? We got really lucky here, by the way, on both fronts. You want to talk about how the cops made the case? New York City's top cop at the time is retired NYPD Chief of Department John Chell. And criminal trial attorney Sarah Azari. No one knows better how you work a case like this to the best of your abilities, and we'll see what theirs are. First, Chief, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Do you have any concerns about what you're learning about how this case was made?
Well, no, I mean, the arrest from McDonald's is a lawful arrest, whether it's based on the cop's own testimony that he knew it was him from the get-go when he took his mask down and relayed that to his boss. And right then and there, he had probable cause. In terms of questioning after probable cause, you cannot do that. You need Miranda. In terms of the bag, search incidental to lawful arrest, search at roughly the same time out in the parking lot, that's where they found the bag. And if that is not good enough, then you have inventory search back at the precinct where you have to account for all the property. As a former chief of detectives in this case, once they found that gun, I would have stopped everything and applied for a search warrant. That's what I would have done. So obviously there's key evidence that gun is a ballistics match to the scene. The DNA, that's the gun. Whether Judge Carroll leaves in or not is another situation. But I think the gun will stick. He's a 25-year veteran, firm but fair judge. And, inevitable discovery, would they have found the gun anyway, regardless of what they did? And the answer is yes.
Sarah, how do you work it as the attorney, and what do you think happens?
Well, before we get to inevitable discovery, I'm focused on the narrative that this was an exigent circumstance justification to a warrantless search. The idea that they thought there was some sort of a bomb or explosive in the backpack. And the body cam negates that, Chris. They come in, they don't observe any bomb or bomb-like object. They feel the bag. There's nothing. The officer testified today. They don't even mitigate the safety issue. People are munching on hash browns and Egg McMuffins like there's no problem. They don't secure the area. And it wasn't until after the first search where they find the magazine wrapped in underwear that then they have probable cause to search further. So when we're looking at fruits of the poisonous tree in a suppression motion, we're looking at that very first search. Was that warrantless search constitutionally justified? And in this case, it's looking like it wasn't. Now, to law enforcement's point, yes, I could see a scenario where inevitable discovery doctrine would play in, where, for example, he had given the wrong identity to the police, so they had probable cause to arrest him for that. Once they have probable cause to arrest him, then they can search his person and his property incident to arrest. But that came later. So what I will say, though, the outcome doesn't matter. Often we bring these motions for strategy. And remember, he has the same motion in federal court the top of January. He's facing the death penalty there. So this is a full dress rehearsal for the defense.
Well, just quickly, Sarah, do you think that they win on this? And do you think it changes his fate?
I think if I was going to read the tea leaves, I think his statements get thrown out. For 20 minutes, he's not Mirandized and he's talking. I think with respect to the backpack, it's possible that the judge will say, you know what, it was a warrantless search. Oh, to get a warrant, Chris, it's like going to Starbucks to get an Americano. It's not that difficult, right? So I could see the judge saying, you know what, this was not a justified warrantless search, but inevitable discovery.
Chief, last word to you.
Yeah, I agree with Sarah. I think the officer had probable cause the moment he took the mask down and said, I knew that was him. So to her point, all questions stop right there. He wasn't free to go. He's going to be on arrest. You can't Mirandize. End of story. So we'll put that to the side. In terms of the bag, right, immediate control, that's a term. Was there immediate control there? But at the end of the day, when they go back to that precinct, they're going to inventory that bag one way or the other. As a chief of detectives, I would have took the extreme safe route based on this type of case and got a search warrant just to be doubly, to make sure it goes right so we don't have these kind of conversations.
Well, Chief, I appreciate your candor, and thank you very much for doing so, especially when you were the guy at the NYPD at the time. Sarah Azari, you're a blessing. Appreciate you. I know I won't see you Friday because Sarah's got to travel, but it's the holiday drink on Friday for the team, Chief. If you want to come, you're welcome.
Well, what about the facial hair? Because my facial hairs look better than yours. What do you think?
It's better than mine. It's better, of course. My grandmother's
when you
was
retire,
better.
you do open collar, you do these type of things.
I have a cut, Chief. But anyway, I got to go. I'll talk to you about it Friday. I have a very important thing to tell you when we come back. Fun fact, you know the fire trucks that you see racing around where you live? Most likely, unless you're in a major city, there's a really good chance the men and women that you see on those trucks are volunteers. 2 out of 3 first responders to fires in this country volunteer to do that. They don't get paid. They do all the things that you do, right, with their jobs and their family, and then find time to train a lot, go to school for months, and then run into places that everyone else is running away from. They choose to do more than most because of their commitment to their community. They are true Americans, and I've always been in love with first responders for that reason. When that punk Mangione murdered the CEO, many people, too many, said, you know, at least he did something about it. It really bothered me that doing something that made it worse, that destroyed, that reinforced us at our worst was seen as doing something. Volunteer firefighters do something about what they think matters. They give, they serve, they sacrifice. And I now understand that better than most of you because as of today, I have passed the tests to become one of them. I'm at the bottom of the food chain. I got so much to learn. But I've already seen so much to admire in these men and women. They care. They step up, and I am so happy to join the ranks of the firefighters in this country who are volunteers. If you want to give back and you can commit, I guarantee your community could use you. So I've never been happier to achieve anything in my life professionally than this. We'll be right back. Leland Vittert, I gave a few seconds back. Now I owe you even more.
You know what? I would normally take time to ask about your regrowth of facial hair. But,
I have a cut that I'm covering up.
I don't want an explanation. We can do it without. Chris, I don't know what happened this weekend. Congratulations on being a firefighter. The Hamptons are safer for it.
Listen,
with you
it
on
is
watch.
the best thing I've ever done with my time. And you'll see. Someday you got a lot of stuff you got to get out of the way first. But when you can give back like this, it's a tremendous honor. Have a great show, brother.
Thank you, my friend. Good to see you.